Welcome in everyone to the show. The Knicks streets are buzzing. It's been a early big off season so far with free agency yet to come, but we've got Mark Berman from sunny Florida to go through the latest buzz and the news of the Knicks draft night acquisitions and of course the big trade with the Brooklyn Nets. Mark, it's great to see you. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, CT, and really enjoying what the Knicks are doing. They've been very exciting, and even if they don't break the curse next season, they're going to be a fascinating team to watch.
Well, let's start with the top. You've been wanting the Knicks to make some moves, some all-in moves. A lot of draft picks. Like, take us through what went through your mind when you saw that the Brooklyn Nets and the New York Knicks had finally break the curse since 1983. That was the year I was born.
Right. Yes, I mean, I was on another podcast a few weeks ago, and I said I can't see Sean Marks trading Bridges across the river, but the Nets are a disaster right now, and they have aided the Knicks. The Knicks are definitely now a favorite to make the Eastern Conference Finals for sure. Uh, but I was stunned. I was stunned that Marks was willing to do that. I think he should have maybe didn't shouldn't have cared so much about that 2031 first round pick and may have wanted to trade him elsewhere. But listen, Bridges is not a star, never been an all star. I wrote a ton about him before that draft, the Kevin Knox draft. Uh, but to me, the beauty of Bridges and this deal is it now is insurance against what I feel is an inevitable OG Ananobi injury, whether in the regular season or in the playoffs. Now they are steeled for a potential OG injury. They could withstand it. Were unable to withstand it against Indiana. We all know, OG missed the Indiana series and missed 28 of 30 regular season games, which is the headline to me when you talk about OG season. I know everyone wants to throw in my face their record with OG, but if you're not available, you're useless. So, but anyway, back on a lighter note, Mikal Bridges always liked his basketball IQ. He could hit the three, great defender. Great move. They added him for nothing. Bogey was a waste and injury prone and not a defender.
Yeah, we see Quentin Grimes traded today to the Dallas Mavericks as well. So some fans that were still clamoring on to the remnants of the Bogdanovich deal. Grimes hadn't been able to find his feet, but let's focus on what was given up because a lot of neutral fans are saying it was a lot. Right? Are you paying a little bit more for the fact that he's just so durable? He's never missed a game, or
Yeah.
is it more of just the Brooklyn tax? Right? What would you say to those that those neutralists that said the Knicks overpaid?
Listen, they gave up a lot of future draft picks. They're going to be late first round picks. So to me, the window is to win either this season or next season, and it was a great deal. I'm sure Leon explored what Embiid would take. Maybe Kevin Durant, maybe not. Uh, Devin Booker. I mean, who else is out there? Are they going to wait forever? I think Donovan Mitchell, they believed at this point with Jalen becoming a superstar that Donovan wasn't as important to wait for. And plus, they may have inside knowledge from CAA that he's going to stick with Cleveland with an extension. So they've waited long enough to trade these first round picks. And again, chemistry is everything. I think they're going to have great chemistry on the court. I know they're going to have great chemistry in the locker room. And they make it's not a clique, especially Jalen. He makes everyone feel part of it. Like Jules will be fine with four Nova guys as part of the package there. But you'd think that their chemistry, the three of them were terrific last season. The chemistry between Dante, Jalen, and Josh Hart was fabulous. And I don't think with Mikal. They've played together, won a college championship. Of course, it's totally different in the NBA, but I think the chemistry will be fantastic also. And again, durability. 82 games a year for Mikal Bridges. No one talks about it enough. I'm a durability guy. The analytics people don't factor it into their analysis. GMs don't factor it into their analysis when they give ridiculous contracts to Kawhi Leonard. It's so important that this guy has stayed healthy, and hopefully Thibodeau won't break him.
He's on such a friendly contract too, Mark. 2 more years at 22, 24, 25 million as well. But back in, I think it was the 2018 draft, I think the Knicks overthought it. He was the guy, right? We've talked
Yeah,
about the infamous workouts with Kevin Knox. I don't know if it was Fizdale that was so enamored with Knox, but
yeah,
Bridges was the pick all along, and it just feels amazing the fact that he's finally a New York Knick, notwithstanding all the Villanova stuff as well, which I haven't really, I don't think it's such a major deal. They all just want to win, Mark. They're just a group of guys that know what it takes to win. And so, how would Tom Thibodeau be feeling now just to get a bunch of guys that want to win? And we'll talk about Isaiah Hartenstein and the rest of free agency in a minute.
yeah. They're winners, and none of them are flashy players. In fact, they all have that same Jay Wright development, and it's really beautiful to watch. And I think even though they got knocked out in the second round, this was a team that was celebrated by Knicks fans, maybe more than they deserved to be, but because they were such a likable group who played the right way. Getting back to what you were talking about, Bridges and the draft, again, a ton of stories I wrote about Mikal. They were leaning toward him. Then he decided to have a solo workout uh, instead of a group workout. He declined to work out against Knox, and Miles was in that draft. That was the big workout with Miles. Um, and Knox outplayed everyone in the workout. And Calipari warned Scott Perry, listen, it's going to take some time. The irony of that was Knox had a very good rookie year and looked like he was way ahead of schedule, and then he fell off the map. It was bizarre, but obviously Mikal was the pick. They blew it. Philadelphia blew it. Hometown kid, the Sixers, it was right in his lap, and now the Sixers won't be getting Bridges, or they won't, as you had mentioned off camera, they won't be getting OG.
Well, in a league now, you saw the NBA Finals, right? Boston, that's the team to beat, right? Five out, guys
Yeah,
the two wings, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, right? The league's buzzing right now with the two defensive wings
yeah.
that the New York Knicks can deploy. But Mark, before you sort of give me your thoughts on how the Knicks line up in the East now, I think an underrated aspect is the fact that the bench, Dante DiVincenzo and Josh Hart, might be pushed back to the bench, which then makes that a whole lot stronger. We'll talk about the draft depth that we just added, but what's the standout for you in terms of a Knicks Boston now matchup?
Yeah, listen, Bridges is a fantastic defensive player. Hart, terrific on defense, and the rebounding is just amazing. I mean, the amount of rebounds he got in the playoffs at his size, it just shows that grit and a nose for the ball is as important as being 7 feet. Uh, yeah, Thibodeau has a lot of decisions to make. Dante, he struggled in the first round early on in that series against the Sixers. He was definitely nervous, biggest role he's ever had in the playoffs. But then he came on late in that Sixers series, and then against Indiana, he was lights out. He was fantastic. He's the reason they went 7 games with Dante's 3-point shooting. Uh, Listen, there's going to be injuries again, so Dante may have to go back to the bench with Josh, but now he doesn't have to play guys 48 minutes. Josh Hart, people don't realize that abdominal strain. You Google abdominal strain, and the first word is overuse injury. 48 minutes a night in the playoffs and some in the regular season broke down Josh Hart. And now with that type of depth, they don't have to play 48 minutes, don't even have to play 40 minutes. And I'm hoping, because it was my pet peeve when I was the New York Post beat writer, my pet peeve was Thibodeau leaving his starters in the game 18 points up with 4 minutes left in February in Detroit. Get them out of the game. That way they can't get injured when they're on the bench, and it preserves them a little more. And I'm hoping that the new medicine doctor, director of science or medical science, they hired away from the Mavericks, is able to talk to Thibodeau and explain to him the more you're on the court, the more probability of an injury. But great depth. And, the McBride thing is an issue because we're reading after they got Kolek in the draft at 34, a great pick, but could Miles be included in the Bridges trade for money to shed some money so they could offer iHeart a little bigger free agency deal, even though the max they could offer may not even be enough? But I don't want to lose Miles. I thought, and you would probably agree, he was a key in the playoffs.
Absolutely. Key piece, young, great contract, plays two way. I think there's other ways to get it done, but I agree with you, Mark. I found it puzzling that that was explored, even if it is. I hope it does not happen. Even if you bring Kolek in, you can ease him in. He can play alongside McBride. And also, obviously, there's other ways you can shed that salary. Precious Achua sign and trade does make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah,
He kind of underwhelmed me in game 6 and 7 when
yeah,
when you kind of needed him to back up Hart. Thought
yeah,
Siakam was the difference in
yeah.
that.
They needed Precious to overachieve, and he had overachieved a bit in the regular season and did some things against Philly. Uh, but ultimately he wasn't good enough. And with McBride, he's durable. He doesn't miss games. I know he just had a surgery on a pinky toe, but he'll be back. He was able to finally hit that 3-pointer when he was open. That was huge. He was always just inconsistent. I think he shot over 40% in the regular season from three, and in the playoffs, it was like 37 or 38%. But he made some huge shots. There was one game in the playoffs against Philly that he came off the bench. The Knicks were playing a little lackadaisical. He sparked them. He hit a couple of threes, played some great defense, and the game turned around in the Knicks' favor. But I would hate to see Miles be added to that Bridges trade. I think he's only getting better.
Yep, same. He's a Tibbs favorite, as well. But obviously Isaiah, that's the elephant in the room right now. Mitchell Robinson's durability is a big question. For as much as we've talked about OG as well, there'd be concerns if Mitch was, the starting center with little to no backup. Obviously we'll talk about some draft picks that we picked up. There's maybe the taxpayer mid level, which might be 5 million that they can spend. But how important it is for the Knicks to retain Isaiah Hartenstein, and how much of a difference is it going to make in your eyes if they are not able to retain him?
Yeah, absolutely huge, CT. I loved what iHeart did in the playoffs, getting those offensive rebounds. He saved so many possessions. Listen, Jalen Brunson had a great playoff, but a lot of times he would score off a second chance, even a third chance. And iHeart was creating those second and third chances for the Knicks. He also has, he doesn't, I thought he would shoot the three better when they made the trade. I heard he could shoot from the three, but he has that little weird, awkward, little mid range 8 to 10 footer. Unfortunately, Mitchell can't do anything but dunk. I mean, all these years, the longest tenured Nick, they have not developed anything with Mitchell's offensive game, almost to a point that he's backslid, especially with the free throw shooting, because he was a good free throw shooter early on in his career, especially as a rookie. And now he's a albatross from the free throw line. So yeah, I don't know. I think there may be a team the way it sounds, I mean, Begley usually doesn't miss. And after the Bridges trade, he made it seem that, it's likely that he's a goner. But I know the Knicks must be doing these financial moves to save money, hoping that iHeart takes less to stay with the Knicks because he was such a valuable piece. I mean, I don't know how he did it. I mean, he was getting these offensive rebounds, tough ones, tough offensive rebounds. And Mitchell Robinson's a great offensive rebounder, but iHeart even topped him. But listen, Mitchell, he's just injury prone ever since his rookie year. I mean, I wrote so many stories about his rehab, hamstring. He's had everything, foot, groin. I mean, it's just down the line because of how he plays, above the rim all the time. So it's going to be tough if he's their only legitimate center.
Yeah, I feel the same, and I feel like iHeart specifically is one piece, potentially in the way of competing for the NBA Finals. If they lose iHeart, he's going to be tough to replace, and
Yeah,
obviously they're going to find somebody else. There'll be some other bodies.
yeah.
There'll be maybe Drummond or Bitadze, some names floated about in terms of the taxpayer mid-level, 5 million. But I still think there's a chance Isaiah could take that deal, starting at 16.1 million. If the Knicks can find that wiggle room, and maybe if they do have to part with Miles McBride, that just might be the sacrifice, which we hope doesn't come to that. But in
Yeah.
terms of the draft, right? We mentioned this front office, and we are just talking off air, right? How did you see the Knicks draft? Getting the four guys, the maneuvering, right? No one's surprised.
I mean, Brock Aller, he was hired from the Cleveland Cavaliers early on in Leon's tenure. And, they raved about him as some kind of cap genius, some kind of wheeler and dealer, accumulating picks. What he did those 2 days, just nonstop. I mean, it just shows how hard they worked the phones, and I thought they did terrific. Listen, the project first round pick from France, who knows, but they don't care about that right now. That doesn't matter for this season. To trade up to 34 to get Colic from Marquette, the point guard. I was speaking to Seth Greenberg, the ESPN college basketball guru, who knows so much, and he's just so elated for the Knicks that they got him at 34. And by the Knicks trading up to 34, I think they may have messed up with Miami. I think Miami had this 37th pick or 38th pick, and he's 23 years old, and that's exactly what Miami does. They draft the old player, and I think they zoomed past Miami and got Kolek. And, he played at Marquette. I think he averaged like 15 points. Seth Greenberg said he thinks he's the best passer in the draft. He says he's a savant when it comes to reading pick and rolls. Very smart player, average defender, but, to get him at 34 and possibly if Miles is part of this Bridges package, it was a terrific deal. And then even getting those late second round picks, supposedly they could play too. I mean, I don't know much about McCullough, but I know he could shoot. I think he averaged 18 points a game, and he could shoot it from three. Maybe they could spot him into games. The other guy is a center, but I don't think he's ready from Australia, 6'11". Uh, I think his name is Huck Porty. But listen, to get all that stuff and then extra second round picks in that trade when they moved back to get when they traded the 25th pick to get 5 second round picks to replenish their draft stock was ingenious because maybe they can make another deal, a big deal with Julius. If Julius is a two-time All NBA All Star, All Star 2 times, All NBA 2 times. They still have some draft picks they could package with Julius. So maybe there is another deal down the road if they feel that Julius and the chemistry with Jalen is not clicking as well as they had hoped.
Well, yeah, the underrated part of the Bridges deal was that they still have, their first in 26, 28, and 30. They accumulated 2 seconds out of this draft despite taking an extra player, moving up and down 100 times. There's flexibility there, as you said. And I think, look, Julius, we've talked about him a million times. I think right now his value is, he's one of the most underappreciated All Stars, All NBA players that I've ever seen in my
Yeah.
life. His
I
value is specific to a team, and fit.
I think that the problem with Julius is he's never done it in the playoffs. Against Atlanta a few years back in that first round, he was awful. It was his adrenaline was way too high. He looked nervous. First playoff appearance in his career, and then he got injured. Before the playoffs with Cleveland. I mean, he never got into form. The prior season, last season, and then this year, obviously with the shoulder. So his playoff resume is not good, but
But
his
do
regular
you?
seasons have been fantastic. It's to me, it's really about chemistry with Jalen. I know in January they ran off a bunch of games. It was a weaker schedule, but Jalen like took that next step into superstar level of having the ball a lot. And he wouldn't have the ball a lot when Julius is on the court and never did. But when Julius was out, Jalen took that next step and he was like Kobe out there and he was getting superstar calls. And that's my one concern about next season that, Jalen gets, no one's on the floor more than him. He takes tumbles like crazy. And I think a lot of it is a bit of an acting thing. And I wonder if the referees in the offseason, they play a lot of tape and maybe they'll be more in tune to not give Jalen Brunson every single call. Although Thibodeau thinks that Jalen doesn't get any calls in the playoffs, he got every call.
Yeah, I think you've commented in the past. You've seen a change in Julius's chemistry with Jalen and the buy-in in New York City, right? I think he would have sat there and watched this squad battle all the way to getting close to the Eastern Conference Finals, adding a now a Mikal Bridges. His legacy is right there, to be a winner in New York, and the buy-in with Tibbs. This is gonna change legacies from a perspective of the Knicks are now set. They're ready to win. There's no excuses, right? We can no longer really talk about Paul George trades or Zion or Cat or anything like that, Mark. The Knicks, did they make their all-in move, like, in your eyes?
Well, again, if Randle is continuing to be an all-star level player and they feel the chemistry fit isn't perfect, they could possibly package Julius with those picks for something important. Uh, but as you said with Julius and the buy-in, it's not about he's buying in. It's just like the chemistry fit. If Jalen wants the ball a lot, like Julius wants the ball a lot, and I'm just worried. I thought Julius and RJ also struggled together chemistry wise sometimes because they both really wanted the ball a lot. I would like to see. I know when I was covering them, Thibodeau just hated putting Julius at the five, but now he's got real defenders around him. Do you put Julius at the five? Is that something that you have to look at in the preseason? I really feel you do. I feel you have enough rebounding around Julius. Again, with Josh Hart, OG's a nice rebounder, and Bridges is an excellent rebounder, considering he's, a forward type. So maybe it could work out with Julius at the five position, even as a starter. Not just in a second unit situation. So Tibbs has a lot of ammunition to work with. He's just got to figure out the right pieces. It's exciting. What
It
Leon
is.
did was very exciting. What the Nets did was disastrous. I don't see how anyone is going into the Barclays Center next season unless the Knicks or Celtics are in town.
It is. And the Barclays games are going to be full of Knicks fans like they always are, but it's going to be to another level with Mikal Bridges there now. And like you said, I agree with Julius at the five. Even if it stretches of the game, I think if we saw in the NBA Finals, if a 38-year-old Al Horford can be your five man and stretch it out, he's not a bruiser or a big rebounding guy. You have to be flexible to win in the finals now. It's a new age.
Well, so if you remember, it was a couple of years ago when we kept asking about Jules at the five, and Thibodeau always would reject it and say, well, we can't outscore everybody. In other words, defensively, he just didn't like it. Jules is really not a shot blocker. But I feel, again, there's enough defenders around him that there'll be some rim protection regardless. Uh, I would love to see it happen. I mean, listen, they'll have no choice if Mitchell Robinson goes down with another injury. But listen, the Knicks aren't done. They do have the mid level free agency. Again, I think I was on another podcast at one point and thought Kyle Lowry was someone that they would want. And since I said that, there was a report that they they may go after him. But now, if it's a taxpayer mid level, Kyle is probably going to want more than that, even if he would join his four other Villanova mates. Thibodeau loves Kyle Lowry. Thought it was an amazing thing that Miami was able to use him as a backup during their run uh, to the finals. In fact, he often mentioned it when the Knicks and Miami faced each other in the playoffs, that what a bonus it was that Kyle could be on the second unit with the Miami Heat.
Yep, and we got our own TJ McConnell version, as people are saying. To let's hope they keep Miles. But one final thought, Mark, on Miami, because I know you're close to that situation. What's going on with Jimmy Butler and Pat Riley? Is Jimmy a realistic chance to get traded or leave?
Well, Pat, he doesn't say anything without having a huge agenda attached to it. So when he took a shot at Jimmy for, Jimmy bragging, we would have sent the Knicks home, we would have sent the Celtics home. And Pat said, listen, if you're not playing, you probably want to shut your mouth. No response from Jimmy. Pat's trying to motivate Jimmy. He in his uh, post-season press conference, Pat had talked about, the durability factor. Uh, Jimmy just does not play enough regular season games, but they were okay with it as long as he was healthy for the playoffs, and then he breaks down in the playoffs. So Jimmy is in a contract year. He's tweeting and on social media saying, I'm not looking for that contract extension. I'm going to go into unrestricted free agency. So, like, the Heat are in this situation where they could lose Jimmy for nothing at the end of next season. But, they're always about winning that season. So it looks like that they will, be together unless Pat Riley gets some crazy offer. But I think the Miami is going to run it back. They may lose Caleb Martin to free agency. And I didn't think they did great in the draft at 15. That Ware center, I was told that his high energy is, and in Miami, it might not work out so well. But they picked Ware at 15. But listen, the Knicks soared past Miami so far in this offseason. They moved past them on paper by a lot. Miami's going to have to do something else.
Yep, as is Philly and the rest of the East. As you said,
Yeah.
it's exciting. Mark, I always appreciate your time. Everyone, smash that like button, and we'll talk again later in the off season. But great to get your thoughts on this,
Yeah.
and I hope you're doing well.
Doing great, CT. Thanks so much for inviting me again. And you mentioned Philly. Philly needs to make a move because, again, the Knicks not only beat them in the playoffs, but now are a better team. So, yeah, I mean, the Knicks look like they're the second best team in the East. Unfortunately, is that their ceiling, and then they can't make another move, and they're just. But it's not bad to be in the conference finals. I mean, it would be fantastic if they could get to the finals and have a chance to break the what will be a 52-year-old championship drought. But Leon has them at least as the second best team in the East on paper right this moment, if everything breaks right. But again, iHeart is a big part of that. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we will see indeed. But yeah, two best defensive wings is a great start, and let's see what they do next. Yep, see you soon, Mark.
All
Peace,
right. Thanks so
everyone.
much, CJ.